EVs from the legacy brands, the Volkswagens, the Ford, even BMW later in the year with the i4. They're finally giving us EVs that aren't compliance vehicles, that aren't vehicles that, you know, they made because they had to make them to get their CAFE standards in line or for ZEV credits. These are vehicles that can stand on their own as great vehicles. And that's really exciting for me to see, because as Stan has said, I've been kind of advocating for EVs now for 12 or 13 years. And I remember back, 2011, 2012, kind of standing on my soapbox and telling people these EVs are coming. And a lot of the vehicles that were out at the time were low range. They didn't charge fast. They cost a lot more. They weren't very competitive. But now we're getting vehicles that really are competitive. So let me talk about a couple of those. First off, and I'm going to talk about my favorite electric vehicle for 2021. That's the Volkswagen ID4. Now, it might not be the sexiest of all of these new entries, but it's one of the most important, in my opinion. Volkswagen, more than any of the other legacy brands, has really pivoted. Now, I think that was pretty much brought on by the Dieselgate scandal. It was kind of forced on them. They had to make this corporate decision on which direction they were going in. And thankfully, I think they chose the right decision. I remember about 3 years ago, God, it might be 4 years ago now, I got invited over to Volkswagen's headquarters in Germany, got to speak to their program managers, top management. And I remember really calling them out on this, were they just greenwashing, because they were saying we're going to have, a new car, a new electric vehicle every 6 months starting in 2021. Well, by 2025, we're going to have 25 new electric cars. And it kind of seemed like pie in the sky at the time. And could we really trust Volkswagen after what they, had just done? So I was kind of a little leery about it, but they're the real deal, Volkswagen. And the ID4 is a fantastic electric vehicle. I had one for a week about a month ago and got to drive it, got to do range tests with it. I was able to drive it 234 miles at a constant 70 miles an hour. I do these 70-mile-an-hour range tests for inside EVs. And,
what is the EPA rating?
The EPA range rating is 250 miles.
Okay.
And the highway EPA range rating is 230 miles. So we were able to slightly exceed that. And that's a very good sign. Electric vehicles won't meet their EPA range rating at a constant 70 miles an hour. Not many of them. Some of them do. And it's the way different manufacturers use different tests when they do their EPA range rating. I think some people are surprised to hear that. But some of the manufacturers honestly sandbag it a little bit because they don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. And Volkswagen seemed to maybe do that a little bit. I think people that
homemade guns that don't require background checks.
Can I ask people to mute their microphones?
I thought someone was talking. Sorry. So yeah, and it also has really good DC fast charging. Now it has a maximum DC fast charge rate of 125 kilowatts, which doesn't sound amazing today because there's a lot of vehicles that charge at a higher rate. But you can't just look at the peak charging rate for an electric vehicle. You have to look at the charging curve. That's actually more important than the peak charging rate, because there are electric vehicles that can accept a lot of power, but they only accept it for like 5 minutes and then start throttling down. I mean, a good example for that is the Ford Mustang Mach-E. We're going to talk about that later. It's DC fast charging has been a bit of a disappointment so far from what I've seen on an otherwise very good electric vehicle. But the ID4 was able to hold its maximum charge rate for up to about 30% state of charge before it starts ramping down. And that's important because when you plug in, you want to be able to say recoup 100 miles of range in 15 minutes or 20 minutes or something like that. Because quite often when you use DC fast chargers, you're not charging to 100%. You're on a long drive and maybe you need to go another 100 or 200 miles. So you're not going to sit there and charge to 100%. So you want the EV, when you plug it in, to have a nice burst of energy for a good 20, 30, 40% of the time before it starts ramping down a lot. And the ID4 does that. In my opinion, it's got really good DC fast charging capability. It starts at $39.95, which is a little high. That's for the ID Pro. But it does qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit. And I'm sure you guys are aware in New Jersey, we have this new New Jersey state rebate that's been paused. That is coming back, and it's going to come back as a dealer incentive where you won't have to apply for the rebate like we've had to in the first phase. The way it has worked for the last year is if you bought an EV that qualified, it was under $55,000, went more than 200 miles of range, you got a $5,000 check, but you had to fill it out through the website, and then you got mailed a check. When the program restarts in a couple of months, it's going to be in the June to July area. We don't have a set date yet, but somewhere in there, it's going to start up again. And it's going to be a dealer-focused incentive. So you'll do nothing as the consumer. You'll just get the $5,000 off the vehicle or whatever the car qualifies for. And then you will, the dealer handles all the paperwork. So it'll be a point of sale rebate when it starts up again in a couple of months. So if you're thinking about getting an EV in New Jersey here, and you can wait a couple months, your lease isn't expiring, it'd be a good idea maybe to wait a couple of months. When the rebate comes back, you'll be able to get that. So the ID4, for instance, you get no sales tax in New Jersey, the $7,500 federal tax credit if you're qualified. You'll get the $5,000 cash on the hood rebate in a couple of months. So now you're talking, under $30,000 for a crossover that, in my opinion, is just a fantastic vehicle. I loved everything about it. I would, if I needed a vehicle like that, I wouldn't hesitate in a second to get this. Over like a Toyota RAV4 or a Subaru Crosstrek or a Honda CRV. I think this competes more with the gas vehicles than it does, say, with the electric crossovers, because it's different than the electric crossovers. Especially, a lot of people like to compare it to the Mustang Mach-E, which we're going to get into next. But I think it really isn't a direct competitor to the Mach-E. I think the Mach-E and the Tesla Model Y are more direct competitors, and the ID4 really competes more with the gas vehicles in that segment. And that's how Volkswagen is framing it too in their advertising. So I think they agree with me on that point, that this is going to cannibalize sales from ICE crossovers more so than it will from the EV crossovers. It's got an 82 kilowatt hour battery. Of that, I think 78 or 77 kilowatt hour is usable. So it's got good home charging. It can accept up to 11 kilowatts at home, which is 48 amp delivery. And so you can recharge it quickly at home. You could recharge it quickly on the road. Volkswagen did a really good job with this. I was really impressed with it. And for me,
can I jump for a while?
What's that?
Can I jump in? Do you guys see the chat window?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that there are test drives available in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. Keep going.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions or any things about the ID4 that they'd like to ask?
When is it going to be available exactly? Did they disclose?
It's arriving in dealerships now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't know how many New Jersey dealers have them yet, but I know they are across the country. They're arriving in dealerships now as we speak. Some dealerships have them already.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's one inside the dealership in Paramus on Route 4, and I'm going to check it out later this week.
Yeah, excellent.
I don't know if it's available for test driving, but I'll be Googling it.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do the math for me. 11 kilowatts. How many amps is that?
That's 48 amps, 11.5 up to 11.5 kilowatts.
This is a lot.
On level 2, yeah. So, but it I mean, I just like to, when I talk about home charging, I like to tell people, you don't have to necessarily run out and get the maximum charging that your vehicle can accept.
Right.
I don't typically recommend people install, to be honest with you, a 48 amp charger at home for 11 kilowatts or 11.5 kilowatts. I typically tell most people to install a NEMA 1450 and get a 40 amp charger. it'll deliver up to 10 kilowatts. And that's all you need on just about any vehicle. You know, unless you drive 300 miles every day and you need to come home late at night and have the vehicle fully recharged by the morning. The only caveat I would say if installing a circuit that's say a 48 amp circuit is if you think in the future you're going to have 2 EVs and you might want to split that circuit to charge 2 vehicles. Then each vehicle can have, you know, as it was sharing the power, you know, you'd have 48 amps to share, because charging home overnight, you're not going to notice the difference between a 40 amp charger and a 48 amp EVSE. You really won't. When the car's parked in the garage overnight, those extra 8 amps isn't going to make a whole lot of a difference. And you get a 48 amp unit, it has to be hardwired by code. You can't use an outlet. So it has to be hardwired. And you also have to pull a number 4 wire, which costs a lot more. If you have a long run, it could be a much more expensive installation. So, you know, I typically tell people, even if they have a car that can accept more than 40 amps, like the ID4 can, that, you know, you shouldn't stress it. But so many people, especially people that are new to electric cars, they think that, okay, you know, if it can accept 48 amps, I have to get an EV, a charger that can deliver 48 amps. That's not necessarily the case. But, you know, that's just a recommendation. I talk a lot about that on my YouTube channel called State of Charge, where I review electric car chargers and just really talk about EV charging most of the time. All right, that's it for the ID4. If anybody doesn't have any extra questions, I'm going to jump over to the Mustang Mach-E.
Tom, Steve Breyer here.
Hey, Steve.
How are they doing with the software on the ID4?
So when I had an early build and it didn't have the latest software. So when I had it for a week, it was a little laggy. You know, I have to admit that it wasn't snappy as I would have expected or would have wanted on a production vehicle. But Volkswagen did tell me that I was running a version of the software that was 1 or 2 flashes behind what was going to be delivered to the customers. And that said, about a week ago, I talked to a friend of mine who had one on media loan in Colorado, and he said he didn't experience any lag and that it was pretty snappy. So he might have had a more recent version of the software. But hey, you know, software is a problem for these legacy brands. They are all struggling with that. I mean, it's one of the things that Tesla does so well, is that they have such good user interface. It's so quick. It's so snappy. I mean, they're a technology company, Tesla, you know, maybe more than they're a car company. And these car companies are struggling to become technology companies. So, you know, it's in my opinion, in the next couple of years, all of the legacy brands, the user interface is probably going to lag a little bit behind what Tesla delivers. But that doesn't mean that they can't be great EVs in their own right.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about the Mustang Mach-E. Now, I know they are in dealerships already. That's probably the second most important vehicle this year that's coming out. You know, Ford's really, I mean, they put the weight of their brand behind this vehicle. You know, I mean, giving it the Mustang name, you know, that means that they're all in on this. And I mean, if it were to fail, it would be an enormous black eye for Ford. So they really put a lot of the company resources behind this. The interesting story about the Mach-E was when this started, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it was going to be a compliance car. It was going to be this crossover that, you know, Ford really didn't put a lot of money or effort into. And about 8 months into the development, and I talked to all the Ford engineers about this, realized that electrification was progressing faster than the company thought. So they said, we can't put out a compliance car in 2021 anymore, like we did with the Ford Focus EV and some of the other the plug-in hybrids that they've put out, which were basically, admittedly, on Ford admitted, those were just compliance cars. They said, we need to make the real deal. And they did with the Mach-E. I only had the opportunity to drive one for a day, but I'm getting Ford's dropping off one in the Grabber blue to my house on Friday. So that's what, 2 days from now. So I have one for a week loan, and I'm going to get a lot better feel for it once I have it for a full week. I'm getting the dual motor, the all-wheel drive with the extended range battery pack. So I should have some videos up on charging and range and things like that on it hopefully soon. But the time that I had in the vehicle, I think they nailed it. I think that Ford did a really good job with it. It drives great. It's the fit and finish was outstanding on the vehicle that I had. Okay, I see here another Tracey to the Mach-E added to New Jersey state contract this year. Excellent. It still, while it drove great. I'm a big Mustang fan. I've driven every kind of Mustang that Ford's come out with. The fact that it's a crossover, it does drive differently than a quote unquote real Mustang. I have to admit that. Doesn't mean it doesn't drive great, because like the Tesla Model Y, for instance, I think that drives great, but it's different than a sports coupe. So, you know, I think it's a little bit of a stretch putting that Mustang name tag on it, but for what this vehicle is, it's a great vehicle. I almost wish that they would have just called it the Ford Model E, because they own the rights to that. I think that might have been even a cooler name for this. And then maybe put a Mustang, logo on a car when they put out like a sports coupe, more like the Tesla Model 3. You know, this is the Mustang Mach-E is more like the Tesla Model Y than it is a sports sedan or coupe. It drove great in my opinion. And here's the thing, they have so many different versions of this. You could outfit it to the way you want. You can get it with the smaller battery pack, which is, let me see, the smaller pack I forgot that is 75 kilowatt hours. The larger pack is 98 kilowatt hours. You can get it in rear wheel drive. You can get it in all wheel drive. There's like 10 or 12 different, there's the stands pulling up. There's Select, there's the California Route 1, Premium, GT. Then they have the launch version, which I think is probably sold out. That was the ones that are coming out now. But there's 5 different models. Each one you can get, with different configurations. And I like that. I like when manufacturers give you the opportunity to outfit it the way you like it, rather than just say, okay, here's the vehicle and here's 4 different options. That's all you have. You could really set up Mustang Mach-E to fit your needs, whether you need all-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, if you need the extended range battery pack. If you can live with the base pack, which is 75 kilowatt hours, you could save yourself some money. The Mach-E can charge at up to 150 kilowatts, but I can tell you this, our early tests on it have been dismal. It really charges poorly on DC fast charge. It only holds its maximum charge rate for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then it starts to progressively drop down. And it actually took, I think a friend of mine, Kyle Connor, charged one from 0% to 100% on an Electrify America 350 kilowatt DC fast charger. And it took over 2 hours to charge it from 0 to 100%. And in 2021, in my opinion, that's unacceptable for a DC fast charge. Now, it doesn't mean that the car's unacceptable for you. Many people very rarely need DC fast charge when they're driving with their EV. I have a Tesla Model 3. I almost never use superchargers because every day the car's 100% charged. It gets 300 miles of range, and I only use it when I'm going to Vermont or somewhere far away. So if once a month or every 2 months you've got to wait a little bit longer at the DC fast charger, it's not really a problem.
Tom,
yes.
So how much time did it take 0 to 80%? Because this is more of an industry standard.
Right. So Stan, I wasn't able to perform that test yet. I'm going to do that when I get my car this week.
Okay, cool.
But it was longer than an hour. And
still a lot, yeah.
And that's too long in my opinion. Most EVs today, get to 80% in 30 minutes or so, 30, 35 minutes. But here's the silver lining is, Ford has said that they're going to, through over-the-air software updates, manipulate the charging curve on the Mach-E. Now, how much are they going to do it? How much better are they going to make it? I'm not sure. But as it stands now, it's got one of the worst DC fast charging curves I think that we've seen.
That's worse than my Chevy Bolt.
Yeah, you know, the Bolt limited at 55 kilowatts, but at least it takes it and holds it the whole time. You know,
No, it holds it until 50%, I think.
well,
and
I
then
mean, it holds it long.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have said the whole time. No car holds the maximum rate the whole time. But I meant long enough, Stan, to make it so you don't have to.
Yeah.
Well, like I said earlier, they don't stay at the DC fast charger forever. They'll unplug after, once it starts ramping down, chances are you don't need to fully charge the car. I mean, that's really the one negative so far on the Mach-E. It also has plug-in charge technology. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with what that is, but plug-in charge, there's two vehicles that have it now, the Porsche Taycan and the Mustang Mach-E. Plug-in charge is this automatic authentication process where if you pull up to a plug-in charge enabled charging station, the only thing you have to do is plug the vehicle in and walk away. It's like, for those of you that own Teslas, I'm sure we have people out here that own Teslas. You pull up to a Tesla supercharger and you just plug it in and you walk away. You don't have to activate an account with an RFID card. You don't have to open an app. You don't have to make a phone call. You just plug the vehicle in and it starts.
There is initial setup, right, that you have to do.
Yeah, well, you have to initially create your account and link.
Correct. Yes.
To an account and set up a payment system so you can, be billed for
right. And I know that this is working on Electrify America. Would this work on EVgo or Blink or ChargePoint network?
EVgo is, all the companies, Stan, are gradually implementing it. EV has already begun to implement it on some of their stations, not all of them. They need to do software updates, and some of the stations need hardware updates too. But this is what we're going to see coming out next, where the next generation of high-speed DC fast chargers are going to all have plug-in charge technology, and the vehicles are going to slowly roll them out. Now, the ID4 doesn't have it yet, but it's going to, by the end of this year, Volkswagen is going to have an over-the-air update. And then the ID4 will also have plug-in charge feature. And one of the things I forgot to mention with the ID4 that is fantastic, Volkswagen is offering 3 years of unlimited DC fast charging on the Electrify America network if you get an ID4. So you could basically—
This is their own network, so that's a why.
Yeah, well, it is their own network, but they're separate entities with separate budgets and so forth. And Porsche is their own network too, but they don't give you 3 years of free unlimited charging. They have a deal, but it's not quite as good as what Volkswagen has, I believe. Now I have to double check that. But the ID4 has 3 years unlimited DC fast charging, so you could lease one for 3 years and never pay anything for your fuel if you really want to. The Mustang, Ford's offering this small perk for the Mach-E. I think it's something like 1,000 kilowatt hours or something like that that you get free on the Electrify America network. It might even be 250 kilowatt hours. I think that's what it is. It's not really a great perk, but hey, it's something for free that they're offering. But the Mach-E, in my opinion, it drives great. It's not as, say, brutally fast as a Tesla Model 3 or Model Y is. It's pretty quick. It goes 0 to 60, the all-wheel drive version, in like 4.7 seconds, which is more than what any of us really actually need. But I think Tesla has spoiled us because we hear these ridiculous quarter mile and 0 to 60 times. So now we think every electric vehicle has to go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, but that's really not really needed, in my opinion.
It makes you nauseous, actually.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
I remember the words from Bob Llewellyn, how he always says, it's so important that it has to have 0 to 60, So yeah, I copy your sentiment.
It's what everybody talks about now, Stan. It's it's crazy. If it's not a drag strip car, they don't want to talk about it. And so few people actually really need that, quarter mile in 12 seconds. But hey, that's what we're being judged on because EVs are such good performing vehicles. So okay, that's the Mustang Mach-E. If anybody has any questions on that. That's in dealerships now. They're available. Matter of fact, New Jersey has quite an inventory on them. You know, if somebody's interested, they can go test drive one, and the dealership will be more than willing to let you test drive them. And let me explain why. Ford has this special deal with their dealerships. Every dealership had to take at least one inventory car that they're not allowed to sell, because Ford wants the dealers to give test drives. The dealership is not allowed to sell that car until it has 4,000 miles on it. So Ford dealers are willing to let people take these Mach-E's on extended test drives. I know friends of mine that are journalists like me that couldn't get a loan from Ford. So they just went to a bunch of Ford dealers and asked them, and they got like multiple loans, and they gave them the car for like the full day.
And
Just
Tom,
so they could
we
do
have
tests.
we have reporter on call today, Payton, and he's just testing out Model 3 so that he can write an article. He would certainly be very happy if he knew this information before, that he could actually get free Mustang instead.
I might have to go next week and see about that.
Yeah, well, they cannot sell the vehicle until it has 4,000 miles on them. So the smart dealers, at least, are saying, sure, you want to take this for a while, go right ahead, but you got to put miles on it, you know? So, you know, that's.
But then you cannot sell it for full price if that vehicle has 4,000 miles.
Correct.
Right?
They won't be able to sell for full price, but that's the deal that Ford made with the dealerships. They had to take one vehicle as an inventory car, and they had to let people test drive it, because Ford knows that a lot of people are skeptical about electric cars. Let's face it. But if they drive them, we all say that. I mean, everybody here probably knows that. You know, we call it butts in seats. You know, get people's butts sitting in the seat of an EV, let them drive it. And in many cases, that's what seals the deal. They didn't realize how good it would be until they got a chance to drive it. So the Mustang starts at around 43,000. Again, qualifies for the federal tax credit, New Jersey state rebate when it comes back. Most versions of the Mach-E will qualify for the state rebate unless you get, say, the GT and you load it up with options. That's going to push it over the $55,000 cap that we have in New Jersey. But many, or at least most of the different options should be able to qualify for that full rebate when it comes back in a couple of months. As far as range,
Okay. Yeah.
with all these all the different versions of the Mach-E, the longest range one is rated at 308 miles, and that's the rear wheel drive with the extended range battery. And it goes all the way down to, I think, 212 miles is the lowest one. And that's the GT or the all-wheel drive version with the small battery. So there's, you know, a wide range of driving ranges available on the Mach-E depending on how you set the vehicle up. You were saying something, Stan?
Oh, just let's go to the next vehicle.
Okay, cool. As I said, I'm gonna talk up the vehicles I've driven first. The Bolt is getting a total refresh. The Bolt EV is getting a refresh for 2022. And Chevy also came out with a different variant of the Bolt called the Bolt EUV, which, as if we didn't have enough acronyms, GM had to make a new one. It's the electric utility vehicle. That's the first time we've heard that one, but that's what they're calling it. The EUV is basically a slightly larger Bolt. It's longer. It's about 6 inches longer, and that in that length, you get a lot more rear legroom. The other dimensions are nearly identical. The width, the height it's almost exactly the same as a Bolt. I would have thought that it would be a little bit bigger, but it's not. These vehicles are really going to kind of compete against each other. I was kind of a little surprised that GM made another vehicle that was so close to the one they sell, you know, without really separating these two that much. And the Bolt EV also has a nice refresh. You can tell that nose kind of looks really, I think that looks really nice, really clean and smooth on the Bolt EV. And that remains, it has the same battery pack as it had in past years, a 65 kilowatt hour battery pack. The EV goes 259 miles per charge. The EUV loses 9 miles because it's bigger and heavier, and it's 250 mile range, EPA range rating. And on the EUV, you can get GM Super Cruise as an option. I was able to drive the vehicle with the Super Cruise up and down Route 287 and worked pretty well. But the difference with Super Cruise has to be on highways that have high precision mapping. Doesn't work like Tesla's autopilot, where the cameras can kind of function on any road as long as it can read the lines. You can only drive it on roads that have been mapped with these high precision maps. So as I was driving down Route 287, there were sections that weren't covered. So it was like we drove for a half an hour, and then this vehicle alerted me that it could no longer use Super Cruise and I needed to take over. And then like 5 minutes later, it was like, okay, you can go back on Super Cruise. And I was able to enable it and use the system. One of the neat features about GM Super Cruise is it does monitor your driving. You don't have to hold your hands on the steering wheel like you do with Tesla. There's a camera that monitors you. And if you seem like you're inattentive, it tries to either wake you up or alert you that you have to take over. And I did make it do it on purpose to see how it works. And it does work. If I purposely looked away from the straight ahead for a while or looked at the radio for a while, it starts beeping to say, hey, you're not paying attention. And I like that. I think the systems should monitor the driver more so than what Tesla does with just a simple torque sensor in the steering wheel that asks you to just, jolt it every now and then, which, as I'm sure you all know, it's very easily defeated. And another thing that GM's doing with the Bolt EV and the EUV, if you buy a 2022 Bolt, either version, they will install a NEMA 1450 outlet in your house for free. So they'll set you up in your house for home charging. Now the Bolt EV just comes with a simple level 1 cord set, but the EUV comes with a charger that's dual voltage. It can charge 240 volts or 120 volts. It has an adapter. So if you get the Bolt EUV, you get a level 2 charger that can charge at 32 amps, and GM installs the NEMA 1450 outlet in your house. So you're all set. It comes with it, and
Tom?
And you're all set. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that even the older versions of Bolt, they came with a charger that is actually capable of the 240 volt charging. It just doesn't come with the adapter. Can you comment?
I guess it's possible I'm misunderstanding, but I spoke with GM about this specifically, and they indicated differently. Now, we could have had a miscommunication, but the way that they explained it to me was that if you wanted to charge level 2, you had to then buy the charger that comes standard on the EUV. If you wanted a charger and you bought an EV, you'd either get the a third party's charger, or you could buy from GM and then package it in with the sale, the dual voltage charger. Maybe they're changing it for 2022. Stan,
Maybe, yeah.
They dropped the price of the Bolt $5,000 for 2022 with this refresh. So, and that's why they're not including the extra charger. It's really the Bolt EV now is their absolute value play. And I think they're aiming it for fleets too, where businesses want to go electric, but they don't want bells and whistles. So they dropped the price by $5,000 and kind of stripped it out, and are basically saying, hey, the EUV might be better for families, and this has more options. You can get the panoramic glass roof on the EUV. You can't get it on the Bolt EV. It comes with a better charger. You can get Super Cruise if you want on the EV. You can't get it on the EV. So I think that's how GM is separating these two vehicles, because on the surface, they're very similar. I mean, they look different, but size-wise, other than getting some 4 inches of more rear leg room on the EUV, the vehicles are extremely similar. Charge ports up in the front. Stan is circling that there. I thought it was a good car. I mean, I think it's an excellent value play. I think the EUV starts at like 34,000, somewhere there, 33.9 or 33.6. So this is 33.9. Yeah. So,
They're also not eligible for the federal tax credit, for time being until
right.
they.
It's exactly. That is one drawback for GM. There are high hopes though, that
Yeah.
before the end of this year, that can hopefully get reinstated, that the federal tax credit will somehow get revamped, and GM and Tesla will once again be able to qualify to get that. I think I'm a very strong proponent of starting that back up for GM and Tesla. I think it's a shame that the first movers to market got penalized
Yes.
by that. And we have, you could buy an EV. If a Chinese company imported an EV, it would qualify for tax credits. But the two all-American electric vehicle companies that have sold the most cars don't get the tax credit. So to me, that's a little unfair. I think when this was written back in the George W. Bush era, when this law was written, I don't think they could foresee, 15 years in the future, what electric vehicles were going to be like and how many were going to be sold. So it's understandable it was written that way, but I really do hope we revamp it.
Part of that was the senators from Michigan trying to protect the Detroit car industry. They put a limit on it because the only car eligible at that point was the Prius.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know the backstory to that, but the funny thing is, if that's the case, GM would have been one of those automakers that were doing that, and it
Oh, yeah.
goes back to that cliche, watch what you ask for. You better be careful of what you ask for. Yeah, I mean, Kathy just said also saw that the tax credit may bump to $10,000. There's a lot of rumors. I don't think that's going to happen, Kathy. And I don't think it's going to be changed to a point of sale rebate. I've been advocating for that for years. I've unfortunately, I've had the opportunity, or fortunately or unfortunately, to speak with people that are involved in lawmaking, people that are involved in lobbying the Congress on this issue. And it seems like the point of sale rebate is a non-starter, that it's not going to get accepted. And that's a shame, because I think that the way it is now, the federal tax credit is discriminates against economically disadvantaged people because they might not qualify for it. But we could talk about that forever. Stan's loading up the Nissan Ariya, which I think is going to be a really good electric vehicle. I haven't driven that yet. Nobody has. Nissan hasn't brought that out yet. That's coming out, I think, in fourth quarter of 2021. The good news is it's going to have a liquid cooled battery pack. Finally, Nissan is putting in a proper thermal management.
And CCS charger.
Yeah, it's going to have a 65 kilowatt hour battery. And about a 250-mile range. That seems to be the number that most manufacturers are targeting now. This is going to go right up against the ID4, in my opinion, more so than, like I said, the Mach-E and the Model Y, I think, are more competitors. This is more of a family mover, a family hauler. We don't really have comprehensive pricing on it yet. The only other big news for the Ariya is Nissan is abandoning CHAdeMO and going to CCS. The Ariya will have the combined charging system, and that kind of puts the death nail in CHAdeMO for the US. I think a lot of people expected that to happen. David asks, do other cars have active thermal management and or heat pumps? They all have active thermal management, David. I think just about every EV that's worth talking about today has active thermal management. The days of passive systems are pretty much behind us now for the most part. They don't all have heat pumps. I'd have to look at my specs. I wish I could remember what every vehicle has and what every vehicle doesn't have. Volkswagen has a heat pump for the ID4, but I think the first batches of them that are coming to North America don't have that option. I think the heat pump's going to be available in the US later. The Mach-E doesn't have a heat pump system. It's not even available for order, if I am correct. But again, I have to go back and look at my notes on that.
Is this the Japanese version? It has charging port on the wrong side.
Yeah, well, like I said, this is not a, they don't have the US version out yet because it's still, this is still 6, 7, 8 months away from production. So that nobody's driven it here yet. And yeah, they don't have the US version available yet. But I think the Raya is going to be a nice choice for people. You know, it's, I think it has its competition cut out for the ID4 though. From the ID4, because I think the ID4 really nails it for that segment. The Araya might be might go a little bit higher end than the ID4, aiming for a little bit more comfort and premium, so it might cost a little more. But I think that's its market. Okay, Stan, do you want to talk about another EV that I've driven? I'll do this one really quickly. Is the Volvo XC40 Recharge? I got a chance to drive that one for a while. Really, really sporty, great drive. I love this vehicle. What I don't love about it is its range. Its EPA range rating is 208 miles. It has a 78 kilowatt hour battery. It's a very.
It has problem with efficiency then.
It's a very inefficient vehicle. It's actually probably the least efficient electric vehicle that I've ever driven on a test drive.
Even worse than Model X?
Yes. I averaged 2 miles per kilowatt hour.
Disaster.
Drove it. And I didn't drive it terribly hard. I mean, I did some acceleration bursts and so forth and so on, but it's very inefficient. And Volvo only recommends that you charge it to 90% because, like Tesla, they allow you to use almost the entire battery if you charge it to 100%. So now that 208 mile EPA range rating really is about 180 miles. If they're telling you don't charge it to 100%, charge it to 90%, now your usable driving is like around 180 miles or so. And in the winter, that might be 150 miles. So you're talking about a car that costs $60,000 with 150 mile usable range. Now, it will work for many families. But I think people that are spending in that price range and want a premium vehicle, Volvo's a premium vehicle, would expect premium range. And it does everything else great. I really love the vehicle. I so wanted to love it because it just, the quality, the fit and finish, the acceleration, it's fantastic. It felt every bit as fast as my Model 3. It goes 0 to 60 in like 4.5 seconds. It's like a rocket. And it built so solidly. I really enjoyed the driving experience, but the range is a problem for it. And I think that's going to really hold. Besides the fact that the price is, if you get it with no options, 0 options, it's $54,900. So it's like $100 under the New Jersey limit. So you can get one with no options and qualify for the tax credit. However, I mean, the rebate, I think it's going to be very hard to get one with not a single option. So you're not even going to get the $5,000 rebate on this. It's a $60,000 plus car. You'll get the federal tax credit, but you're still over $50,000 for a car that might have a usable driving range of 150 to 190 miles.
And it's built by the same brand as Polestar,
Yes,
right?
and
But
it has
Polestar came last year.
It has the same exact battery pack as the Polestar 2 that Stan just brought up on the thing. I haven't driven that yet. I've sat in it about 3 or 4 times, and it's super comfortable. It's one of the nicest interiors that I've ever seen on an electric car. I mean, it felt, like I was in a cockpit. I haven't driven it. Friends of mine that have driven it said it drives fantastically. It suffers from the same inefficient powertrain that the XC40 Recharge does. This has an EPA range rating of like 220 or 230 miles, a little bit more than the Volvo because it's smaller, weighs less, and it's also more aerodynamic. But it suffers from the same problems. I see Stan typing up now what might be my favorite car that hasn't come out yet, and that's the Hyundai Ioniq 5. If you guys haven't read about this or seen it yet, do some Google searches and look into it. This is coming out in, I think, about 6 months. There's two versions of it, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, and then Kia is making their version called the EV6. It's basically the same vehicle. It just looks differently. It has an 800 volt battery architecture like the Porsche Taycan. This car can charge from 10% to 80% in 18 minutes. So, you know, we talked about the Mach-E needing an hour to charge to 80%. Imagine road tripping with this. Less than 20 minutes, you're back up to 100%. It also has vehicle to grid capability. This can put out, I think, 3.8 kilowatts. You can power your house with it. You can, if you're camping or somewhere or at tailgating, you can plug in all kind of appliances and run TVs and things and so forth. Really cool. The interior is really super futuristic.
And it's hatchback, right?
What's that?
It's a hatchback, looks like.
It's a hatchback, exactly. Yeah. It's I think slightly smaller than the Model Y. But it's not like the picture. It kind of almost looks like a Volkswagen Golf, but it's not. It's bigger than that. It's a pretty decent sized vehicle, crossover.
And I assume it will come with the efficiency of Honda electric vehicles, right?
Hyundai, other than Tesla, Hyundai has been the king of efficiency.
Yeah.
They're the only other manufacturer besides Tesla that's been able to just nail it with efficiency and make their vehicles incredibly efficient. We hope it's as efficient as their other car stand, but I would expect it would be, because they seem to have the special sauce like Tesla has when it comes to making really efficient vehicles. We don't know too much about that. It's going to come in two batteries, a 58 kilowatt hour battery and a 77 kilowatt hour battery, and super fast charging, and lots of really cool features. The center console, actually, the armrest slides back and forth, and the seats nearly fully recline. So they've made the cabin. They've given the cabin some unique features on this. It kind of looks retro, but I really like it. And then now Stan just pulled up its sister vehicle, the Kia EV6. That has basically the same architecture, but it has Kia's styling. And Kia is typically like a value brand next to Hyundai. Usually costs a little bit less. I expect the base version of this to cost a little less than the Ioniq. That 45,000 just estimated. And then they're also going to offer it in a GT version, that the EV6 GT, that the stats on it are crazy. It like does a quarter mile in like, it'll beat like a Tesla Model 3, I think, in a quarter mile race, really fast. But Kia always has that. They have their GT line that they make vehicles that are really good performers. And this is, that's the GT that Stan just pulled up there. Super fast, really powerful, more power than what you could ever really need, to be honest with you.
4.5 minutes and 10 kilometers.
Well, we have to get, I mean, I could talk about the Audi e-tron, the BMW.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Trucks. How about Rivian?
Go ahead.
Rivian's coming out with we're finally gonna have an all-electric pickup truck. Thank you. This is gonna be the year of pickup trucks. The Rivian's coming out with the R1T. That's coming out in June, so we're only like 2 months away from it.
Can we mute the dog?
The base version has 300 miles of range. You can buy the Max, it's called the Max Pack option, that gives it over 400 miles of range. The starting price is $67,500 on this, which is kind of expensive, but you know what? Take a look at like some of the loaded Chevy Silverados or Ford F-150s. They're easily 60, 70,000 when you start to load them up. And these are pretty loaded as standard. And then a couple months later, you can see that green SUV in the third picture. That's the Rivian R1 S. That's coming out in the fall, and that's the SUV version of Rivian's pickup truck. That's the same thing. It's going to have about a 300-mile range. That starts at $70,000, and it's going to come out sometime, I think, around September. Kind of has a Range Rover-esque look. I've sat in both of these vehicles. Nobody's driven them yet. They haven't let media drive them, but I've sat in both of these vehicles, and the interiors are total luxury. These are not work trucks. These are like adventure lifestyle vehicles. These are like, I really put them on the par. They feel like a Range Rover when I was sitting in both of those vehicles. Here's the Lordstown Endurance. It's supposed to come out. I don't have extraordinarily high opinions of Lordstown. They haven't really shown us too much yet. Their first road concept, the first time they brought one of these out to actually drive on the road was like a month ago, and it was on the road for 15 minutes and it burned up. It caught on fire and burned up.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's the only one that they've ever taken off their complex to drive on the road. So I'm looking at Lordstown with one eye open and one eye kind of closed a little, because they have some great specs and everything, but they haven't let journalists near the vehicle. They haven't let journalists at their facility. And when journalists reach out to these companies and they won't give us any information, and they just stonewall us and they won't let us do interviews and so forth, that raises a red flag to me. And that's what Lordstown's kind of been so far. And now Stan's pulled up the e-tron GT, I guess is what you're pulling up, because the e-tron's been out for a while. The GT is actually Audi's version of the Porsche Taycan. That is a Porsche Taycan in Audi clothes. And I love the Taycan. So by default, I love the Audi GT. The Taycan is a fantastic driving vehicle. This is virtually the same vehicle, except with Audi's clothes on it, and they upscaled the interior, made it look a little bit more premium, a little bit more businessy. And this is a fan. If
So this thing can charge it like 300 kilowatts?
Up to 270 kilowatts.
270, okay.
Yeah. So it charges really quickly. It comes standard with a 98 or 95 kilowatt hour battery pack. Goes somewhere around 230 miles, I think, EPA range rating. But I tell you, the Taycan is, if money is no object, and I've driven every electric car that there is out there, guys. If money was no object, I would be driving a Porsche Taycan over any of the Teslas that are available. I've driven the Taycan 3 or 4 times now. I've probably cumulatively driven Taycans like 2,000 miles. It's just a fantastic driving vehicle. And I'm sure this will be just as good, except it's an Audi design and Audi clothes. Maybe somebody doesn't want a Porsche. They like the Audi design language, and that would be made for them.
What was the BMW you mentioned?
So the BMW i4 is launching in the fall. That's BMW's 5-seat sedan. That's kind of supposed to be what they're going to be going head-to-head against Tesla with. It's a little bit longer than a Model 3, about 4 inches longer than a Tesla Model 3. It's going to have about a 300-mile range. We don't know too much more about it, what its price is going to be. It's going to cost a lot more than a Model 3. But BMW, is positioned at a higher area. I see Stan looking at the grille in the front.
It's awful.
That's very controversial design language is BMW, but it's across the brand. It's not just on this vehicle. All their new vehicles have these giant grills in the front. For the i4, it'll be closed off. It won't be a breathing grill, or it might actually be power operated so that it can open up if the vehicle needs.
You have plenty of space underneath.
Well, yeah, but some of the BMW plug-in hybrids have that now, like the X5 has.
Oh, yeah.
Looks like that, but when you start driving, it opens up a little bit. That's why I thought that this one might also. So yeah, that's BMW's.
We are running out of time.
Okay, yeah, we're up against it. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody want to ask me anything about any of the cars I've driven or anything like that?
What do you think about this one?
Aptera, pretty cool vehicle.
I love it.
This is a second go for this vehicle. I actually had a reservation on this car back in 2008 when they were trying to make it start way back then, but the company failed, it went bankrupt. Now it was bought back. Some of the original founders restarted it, and they're bringing it back. And it looks like they're going to make it to production this time. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, this time I have reservation for for it.
What's that?
I have reservation this time around for this
Cool.
car.
Cool.
And
Isn't it? I mean, it.
yeah, and if anybody wants to have a reservation, I can provide the discount code.
So, very cool vehicle.
Yeah.
I hope it makes it this time around. I think it will. It sounds like they've got funding and everything. I like when people think outside of the box, you know, and do things that other people aren't doing.
If you cover the whole roof with the solar as an option, then you get about 40 miles a day just from sun. So I think that's a very powerful claim.
Very cool.
Anyway, any other questions? I would like to thank Tom so much for coming and talking about this. Thank you, Tom.
It's my pleasure. Listen, I love talking EVs, and I love that you give me the platform to talk with some of my fellow New Jerseyans and people, it sounds like, from other states joined us this time, which is great. You know, if anybody looking for follow what I do, you can go to Inside EVs. You could also go to my YouTube channel. It's called State of Charge with Tom Moloughney. It's a lot of charging information there. I do very comprehensive charging station reviews, really deep dives, what like very few people do. I even freeze the chargers to see how they work in the cold weather and so forth. I see somebody's trying to reach out to me. Sure. I guess I can put my email.
Can I disclose your email?
Yeah, sure. It's just my name
Okay.
at gmail.com. tommoloughney@gmail.com. If anybody wants to reach me, that's where I am.
Is it like that?
That's it.
Okay.
So thanks for giving me another opportunity to talk about what I love to talk about.
Thank you. Now we are going to go to the next part. If you want to stay, we are more than welcome. If not, we understand.
I would love to, but I do have a deadline on an article tonight, and I haven't really started it. So I don't want to be up till midnight. I'd like to go write this thing now.
Okay, good.
Okay, guys. Thanks.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Tom.
So I'll go to the next part, which is how to communicate the EV benefits. And, you know, coming from the corporate world, the communication is very critical. You want to take care of so many aspects. You have to be actually listening very effectively. You have to have professional language. You need to have empathy and mirroring, what is called personalization. You have to have accurate information, and you have to be transparent and honest. And last but not least is the positive body language. It's all part of it. So there is no silver bullet, unfortunately. You know, there are lots of people who will just never approach us because they already made the decision. They don't want to negotiate. They don't want to hear some alternatives. But it's always the best if somebody happens to approach you when you are displaying your vehicle, that you ask, have you ever driven an EV? And that sparks an interest. It's like, oh yeah, I did not. How is it? Right? And when you start that conversation, then you just want to be yourself. You want to talk about your own story, because when you talk about your own experience with the electric vehicle, it shines from you. It's just you cannot lie. Your body language doesn't lie, right? And so that, which means that if you hear somebody talking about electric vehicle and you like it, well, that doesn't mean that you have to speak the same language, because you feel it maybe somewhat differently. Not that you disagree with the other person. Also, avoid being overly technical and nerdy. Well, this is actually something for me, because I tend to be very technical. You can detract potential, I don't want to say customer, but future EV advocate or buyer. But then could be a moment when it's actually the time to switch and be a little bit more technical, because you may hit someone who is. And you want to focus on the personal benefit. I always say that what is the reason why I got the electric vehicle, that it's environmental, but then there is always important to switch into actually the personal benefit, because people don't buy cars to save the planet or save the environment. So you want to say, hey, you can buy electric car and you are actually saving money and all those things, like total cost of ownership, fuel saving, fuel that you can fuel at home. You don't have to travel anywhere. Inspections, lack of low maintenance. And if instant torque is important, talk about it, preheat, pre-cool, or what was the other thing, that the vehicle is quiet. I envision not everybody wants to talk about it, because it's not what comes on top of your mind when you advocate for electric vehicles. And also, do not underestimate the power of relation. What I mean by relation is that we are all different, and it's much more likely that someone who is in your demographic will be much easier to relate to you and listen. But if you are not in that demographic and you are in the group where everybody is showing some vehicles, and you see someone else who is a better match, you can as well say, hey, talk to this person. This person can talk very well about electric vehicles, right? So that way you are actually delegating the advocacy job to someone else, regardless of who is better advocate. But it's much better to have the match, the demographic match. Speaking of which, we are not diverse enough. But this is not something I can address in this forum. If you know of someone who is from minority, please invite them. Specifically, if you know someone who drives electric and is in minority, we need those people. Big deal. And be empathetic. Some people don't have the driver to install a charger. Specifically, really the lower and middle income people, they would benefit. They would benefit a great deal by owning an electric vehicle. They could buy used Leaf for a few $1,000s, right? But where do they charge, right? So, and quite honestly, if I couldn't charge at home, I wouldn't buy an EV, right? So going to rapid charger is not an option on a regular basis. I mean, if you go on a road trip, yes, but other than that. So that's pretty much it. Do you have any questions? You can interrupt me.
Can I ask a question about that? And I'm curious, Stan
Yes.
or Alex or anyone else who wants to chime in there. I mean, is it such a bad problem, charging not at home, being out on the road on a regular basis? As you mentioned, I've been driving EVs this week, and I don't charge at home because I don't have that infrastructure. But I am curious, anyone's experience. I mean, is that a deal breaker for everybody not being able to charge at home, or is it just a bit of an extra headache or a bit of an extra thing to think about?
Well, Payton, I'm Stephen Breyer. I used to work for the Times-Picayune in New Orleans and a couple other newspapers, and I'm currently back in Louisiana. But I just helped my daughter move from Barnegat to Philly.
Ah, okay.
I spent the last 2 months up in New Jersey and then helped my daughter move to Philly. And it's a deal breaker for her. There is absolutely no way she can have an electric car in Philly because there's just no place relatively, even remotely convenient for her to charge. And although she's working remotely, she works at Lakehurst Naval Air Station, and there's no EV charging at Lakehurst. So even if she had an electric car, she's got no place to charge it without taking an extra hour out of her day. And the round trip from Philly to Lakehurst is what, about 140, 150 miles.
Yeah.
So when she does go back to the office without having home charging, it's a deal breaker.
Yeah, I mean, she couldn't even make it round trip, I guess, right? Yeah, that's
Well, she could in some
that's tough.
cars, but and especially some of the newer ones coming out. But she'd still have to charge at least every other day. And after driving from Philly to Lakehurst and back, you're not going to want to sit around someplace for an hour. I mean, it's a deal breaker for her. She'd love to drive electric.
Is the answer there as simple as just better city infrastructure, just more street chargers?
The Philly actually had a program for a while where you could apply to get a parking spot in front of your place and put in your own electric charger. And it would not be your spot, but it would be your charger. And nobody could park there except other electric cars, but they weren't allowed to charge there. Philly canceled that program because between reserve parking spots for handicapped people and this program, they were losing like 4, 5, 6 spots on every block. And I don't know if you've ever tried in like the Queen Village section of Philly, downtown Philly. It's not at all uncommon to see people drive around for 25, 30 minutes hunting for a spot.
Yep.
You take one away for somebody's electric car charger, and like it just kills the whole neighborhood.
Yep. Thanks for that insight, Stephen. I appreciate it.
Andy?
Hi, guys. I think there's an issue with the audio on the computer, so I think I've got you on my phone here.
You're muted.
You just muted yourself, Andy. Sorry.
Okay, so I guess, okay, back to the computer. So it looks like the computer can only input but cannot output. So I've got the audio on my phone here on my desk, and so I can hear everybody, and then I'm talking to you on the microphone on the computer. So we are now on our third EV in 4 years. Our children have grown up with them, and our daughter is getting ready to move to Richmond, Virginia, because she's starting medical residency in July. For her, it's not even, as the previous gentleman was saying, is it inconvenient or is it really that difficult, right? There's a couple of factors involved. A, it depends on how often you're using the vehicle, number one. Number two, it also is a function of the cost behind it. Because when you pay to go to a public charger, you're paying double the triple what it would cost you for raw electricity if you were just a consumer plugged into your house, right? So I think it's not, the problem with these type of questions is there's no one answer that fits everybody. But the general gist of it is that for a lot of users, unless you have that ability to have a dedicated spot where you can then control the charging, the convenience factor, and especially for a lot of people that are contemplating their first time, they're going to be looking at an EV that's perhaps pre-owned, right? So if you look at a first generation Leaf, you take a look at up to the 2016 BMW i3s, where you max out at 80 miles to begin with, and now you've got battery degradation. If you're looking at, say, February, where it's in the sub-zero, now you're looking at about a 15 to 25% range hit. It really kind of tips the whole equation out of whack there. And I think you could argue to a certain extent that a 110 level 1 charger would kind of sort of do the job. But, if you're using the vehicle, the problem with the 110 chargers is that if you actually do what a lot of suburbanites would do, which is especially like on the weekend where you would run out to the store, come home, right, do some stuff at the house and run back out, do another errand, come back. The 110 charger just will not give you back the range that you need while you're back at the house. And if you don't even have that, we've become very, very spoiled with our cars in America, especially since we're not like in Europe where they're paying $5 to $7 a gallon for fuel. For us, fuel here is relatively inexpensive and relatively readily available. So it's still a tough sell. But if you really think about it, the primary advantage, one area which, if you really think about where EVs could be transformative, is in the more economically challenged neighborhoods, which tend to be in the larger cities, right? Which disproportionately have a higher number of lower income folks. Perhaps you have a nonprofit in there that's got, an agency vehicle, right? Those guys would actually make a good fit because typically those types of scenarios, they don't drive all that far. They're driving around that particular municipality or that city or that town, right? Limited range, and they generally have some sort of home base that they operate out of, which you could pretty easily install a charger in there. And that would really help a lot of the nonprofits. By the way, Stan, we should talk about that and go to those guys.
Okay.
But anyway, it's, even for, we survived 4 years without putting a level 2 charger at our home. And we live just outside of Princeton. We're in Princeton Junction in West Windsor, right? And the reason we survived 4 years without it is because 2 miles from my front door is Quaker Bridge Mall, which happens to have a DC-SC rapid charger, which coincidentally, the first 2 cars that we had, BMW paid unlimited charging with EVgo, which is the station that we had there. So for us, for the first 4 years, there was no incentive for us to put a 220 charger at the house. When we picked up our third one, literally, Payton, the day that I picked up the car was the day that my promo ended. And I was confronted with the reality of, here's what you pay when you are a civilian. And I literally pulled over at the rest area on Garden State Parkway in Bloomfield, tapped my card, plugged the card in, tapped the card and said, "Who are you?" I said, "What do you mean, who am I? I've been using you for 4 years." And they said, "Pay up." I was like, "How much?" And in that first, literally, I think in the first week and a half, I spent $100 in charging, right? Which then just kind of throws the whole rationale for getting an EV out the window. So at that point, my wife said, "Okay, you're putting in a level 2 charger at the house." And that just tips everything.
Yeah.
That's helpful. Thanks, Andy.
You're welcome.
So that was essential introduction of Payton. How do you pronounce your last name? Guion?
Guion, yeah, that's right.
Guion, okay. So your objective is to learn more about electric vehicles, and then you want to write some article in Star Ledger, or how do you understand?
Yeah. So the story that I'm writing is I am really trying to encourage the paper to start kind of a future of infrastructure type beat. And I was able to convince them to let me rent some EVs this week just to cruise around, get a feel for it. But also I really appreciate you guys letting me come learn a little bit more. I mean, just seeing some of the things you guys are throwing in the chat, talking with Tom about, I mean, that's it. This is all just really good stuff. So, I think the first story I'm going to write is sort of about my experience, not only driving the EVs, but also talking to you guys and just really learning the lay of the land. And that story will probably come out in the next couple of weeks. But this is an issue I'm gonna hopefully be staying on top of. So this very well may not be the last time you see me. So I do appreciate the hospitality.
No, it's great to have you here. But remember, I will kind of jump into another slide here. We have National Drive Electric Earth Day, and we have events, right? And we want to promote them. For the rise of Gen Z EV driver or electric driver, we have already press release. If we send you the copy, can you help us take it out into Star Ledger or some other media?
In terms of my ability to get any specific press release into our publication, is that's not really how that works. I'm happy to include this sort of information in the story where it's relevant, but in terms of like what we run as far as press releases go, that's not really a decision made by me. But I'd be happy to, Stan, send me anything you've got, and if it's something worth, something I can do a story on, sure. If it's something different, I can get it in front of the right person.
Yeah, Kathy, are you here? Because Kathy is doing this event with me.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
Yes.
can you send him the press release?
I'll
I
put
think
my email in the chat.
send it to you. Your email in the chat.
That's where I'll put it there, just so, and anyone who wants to reach out to me on that email to talk more in depth, anything, feel free, please.
Cool.
So, Payton, I got a quick question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
So you actually went out and rented a bunch of EV vehicles over some period of time, right? And you've been driving around. I'm assuming that where you live, you do not currently have an EV charger installed.
Correct. Yeah, I'm in an apartment in Queens.
Where are you in Queens?
Say again.
Where are you in Queens?
Sunnyside.
Ah, my old neighborhood.
Oh, really? That's a small world, man.
Yeah. It's very hard. So, in your experience, I mean, there's two different sides to the equation, right? There's a physical driving experience, and of course that depends on the specific vehicle you're driving. And then there's the infrastructure experience. In the driving experience, what were your thoughts on that? Because pretty much everybody who's driven the cars, they all come back and they're just like shocked if they've never driven one, because they're like, it was so much better than I expected. It's quieter, it's faster, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, I probably can't say anything different than that. And I was spoiled that the first one I happened to hop into was a Tesla Model 3. So I picked it up in Leonia and drove down to Woodbridge.
Leonia, my old hometown.
Man, I'm barely missing you everywhere I go. I drove down to the office in Woodbridge, and I was just on the turnpike, and I barely put my big toe down on the gas pedal, and I went from like 55 to 80 before I could even look down at the spot armors. So I mean, the driving experience is fantastic, and I'm not sure I expected much different in terms of the. To be honest, I think a week's probably not long enough for me to feel the real pain of the lack of infrastructure, particularly where I live. But range anxiety has been a thing for me.
Which vehicles were you able to rent aside from the Tesla 3?
So I just picked up my second one today, and that's probably the only other one I'll rent, and it's the Audi e-tron. And I'm actually like frustrated is the wrong word, but a little bit. I was hoping to get maybe something a little less luxury, just to give that a try, maybe a little bit of a smaller range. But those were really the only two that were available to me. But I mean, I'm enjoying the driving quite a bit. I mean, I don't know that I can say too much of a bad word about that.
Yeah,
it is very premium vehicle. Yeah, it has even fragrance maker.
I'm a little not annoyed, because I mean, I'm fortunate to be able to drive those vehicles, but I feel like if I were to enter the segment, I would not be buying myself a Tesla Model 3 or or an e-tron.
Yeah, I think for the majority of folks that are considering it as kind of a first step, let me dip my toe in the water kind of thing, right? They're all looking essentially at pre-owned vehicles. Typically, that's something that's going to have a shorter range battery, perhaps a first generation Leaf or BMW i3 as an example, which typically will max out at 80 miles in range, right? I'm wondering maybe if, unfortunately, you're in Queens, so I would offer you my car, but it's the latest generation i3, which has the bigger battery.
Sure.
So I think if you want to look at the other extreme, maybe we can find a Leaf owner that would volunteer their car for a couple of days, and you can actually see the difference, because when you have an 80-mile range, that, as you talk about that range awareness, changes dramatically compared to when you have something that's got a 150-mile range or 200-mile range.
If this were a story more about the cars themselves, there's no way I would have figured out some way, and hopefully maybe I still can figure out some way to get in a Nissan Leaf or something similar. But this is more just, this story is going to get heavier into the infrastructure than sort of like the day-to-day experience, although there will be some of that. But for like the 80-mile range and anything kind of less than what I've got, I'm going to kind of lean on the folks I'm speaking to relay. And I think you guys have already given me a lot of good stuff, and I'm just going to keep doing more reporting until I'm done with it.
Okay, good.
Thanks again, guys. I mean, appreciate everything.
You're welcome.
Let's go through. Okay, so there was another. Actually, I should change this. It was a leadership development meeting on March 27th, 2021. Lots of good stuff. If you are interested, if you plan to open a chapter somewhere sometimes in the near future, let me know. I can hook you up. It's a leadership development meeting every month. Now it's on Saturday, I guess the third Saturday in a month. I was expecting someone from NRG on call today. Do we have Shane or Rodel? Based on my last check, I haven't seen these people. NRG, I presented to their employees on March 26 about the incentives in New Jersey, and they expressed interest to support us financially. So as long as we have at least one EV show, they can give us some funds. So I think for our Milltown event, this will be a good hit. I also want to shout out about the new breed of EV drivers that are emerging in New Jersey. And maybe it's not just they are emerging, but we are more connected now to them because of our recruitment as part of Drive Electric Earth Day efforts. As I have mentioned, we have a rise of Gen Z electric driver show coming up on April 15th. So we have these 4 young fellows, and each of them brings different vehicle and different story. Nihar, he has a Tesla Model 3. Paige Greenfield, she has a plug-in hybrid, and it's the very early Chevy Volt. I think it's not 2012. I think it's 2010 or 2011. It's actually one of the first models that rolled down the production line, and she's the second owner. She bought it from one of the employees. So and yet she loves it. It's still a reliable vehicle. Anthony, you may have recalled that he is already a member for about a year, member of our organization, and he finally bought his first EV, and he's leasing Nissan Leaf, right? So it's not Tesla, and he didn't buy it, he's leasing it. So it's a different experience. And Ronald Beeger, he's going to talk about S0 bike. So it's again pretty good diversity that we have. A kind of jump. I'll jump here. I mean, I've showed this slide before, but this is what we have right now. It feels like only 3 events. Maybe it feels less than during the National Drive Electric week in September, but bear in mind that I was just checking today, and in New York State, they have only 2 virtual events, and the whole New England, they don't have any in-person events. And in other direction, Pennsylvania 0, Maryland 1, Washington, DC has, I think it's virtual. Delaware, from some reason, they have two in-person events lined up. So, and we have two virtual and one in person. You know, so I think perhaps related to the uptick of COVID in the region, but I think this is as good as it gets when we have still pandemic, unfortunately. But I want to shout out to Dorian Kerber, who braves it. We will have EV show in Milltown on April 24th. Make sure that you subscribe, that you sign up. We will have even some vendors, so it's going to be nice. Obviously, face masks will be mandatory. And Ken Jones, are you still with us? Ken Jones, he put together this virtual event, Electric Cars for Newbies. It's going to be April 20th. So that's what we have. And regarding virtual events, this is something that I already mentioned before. But if you go to electricauto.org and you hit the events link, you can actually see virtual events by other chapters. Of course, everything is free. And I tell you that some of the chapters, they have very cool program, very nice program. I mentioned previously the Texas, Houston chapter. They had a guy from Aptera. And that's what actually turned me to make a reservation on Aptera. Because this is a very exciting proposition. Oh, Plugzio, look at this. And here, they have 2 times. What else do I got? I think I mentioned that previously. And these are slides from previous meeting. You can tell that I was editing deck from last month. So yeah, that's it for today. Now, Kathy, do you want to say something that I missed regarding the April event and rise of Gen Z EV driver?
No, I think you covered it pretty good. I'll send the press release out. Yeah, I think it's great that we're gonna have students talking to students. That's like really what we wanted to do. So
do we have anyone on call now who would be capable of spreading the word so that if we share the press release with you, you would be able to send it somewhere?
Yes, you share it with me, Stan.
Okay,
Tracey.
cool. Kathy, can you send to Tracey as well?
sure. Yep.
Cool. Yeah.
I'll put my email to you in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
And
Thank you.
and
Send me a copy.
maybe I mentioned it last month, but this is a really big collaboration. This is with RideWise and with Raritan Valley Community College. Most of the students, they are actually 2 of the students are from the school. Nihar, he's a son of one of our members and my former colleague, and he's a student at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. And Anthony, he's not student, but he's our core member.
He is a student.
Is he?
Yeah. Yeah. He stopped by the house the other day, by the way.
Oh,
So,
because he
I got a chance to
didn't
quickly take a look at the car.
mention it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, the next time when we will have meeting, all these will be passed. So this is the last chance. This is the last time I'm talking about it. You can see that all of them are at the same domain, right? driveelectricearthday.org. And if you go to that website, you can see many other events. And that actually, that list and this list are 2 separate lists. Whatever is listed here on electricauto.org. It's not related to Drive Electric Earth Day. These are typically meetings, just like us. You know.
Y'all are welcome to come to the one down in Baton Rouge with me.
Yeah, you should open chapter.
Well, I'm trying. We're having a Drive Electric Earth Day thing at the Baton Rouge Zoo on the 27th. Those of us with our electric cars in the heart of the oil and gas industry.
Stephen, I went to the MailChimp database and I tagged you as a leader.
Okay.
So, which means that you will receive emails that are targeted for leadership.
Okay, thanks.
So if you want to change it, let me know, because I'm not sure if you hit unsubscribe, it would probably do everything. So I
haven't seen any yet, so I don't know when you.
Yeah, because they don't come very often.
Okay.
They don't come very often. So this is not something that you want to unsubscribe from anyway.
Yeah, there are lots of, I see, I saw 2 Chevy Bolts today while I was out for my walk and a couple of BMW i3s. I've seen probably in my neighborhood, I guess probably about 25 or 30 electric cars, which, considering how red a state Louisiana is and how heavily invested the state is in the oil and gas industry, it's always kind of a shock when you see one coming down the street.
Well, Louisiana is not the worst in EV adoption in my book. I was doing some studies, and the worst is Mississippi and West Virginia. They have actually EV punishment fee registration.
Yeah, the one that was on the in the legislature for Louisiana got pulled. It won't be in the legislative session this year unless they sneak it in the middle of the night, which is certainly not beyond the Louisiana legislature.
I can show you this slide. This is EV adoption by state as calculated per 1,000 people. And Louisiana is here. It is low, but Mississippi is lower. And West Virginia is also, I think West Virginia is the lowest. We are here. I think I've shown this slide in some previous meetings.
I saw a story in the last couple of days on the number of chargers per state per 1,000 people.
I don't have that figure, but apparently New Jersey is not on top.
West Virginia pegged out on top just because, no, it was the number of chargers per car in electric vehicles. And West Virginia pegged out because they had more chargers than they had cars.
Yes. But that number is probably useless.
Yeah.
Good news that the oil prices are going up, or specifically the gas prices are going up. It's about 50 cents from the beginning of the year, maybe even more. Where do we have beginning? Somewhere here, 225, now 280. Yeah, it's 60, 70 cents. I like it. Of course,
well,
when I drive on electricity.
I had a heart attack when I took my daughter's VW diesel out and had to fill it up. And diesel up in Jersey is almost $1 a gallon more than it is down here.
Mm. Okay.
Well, I'm going to have to bail out. I've got some work to do also. So thank you very much, Stan.
Thank you for joining. Do we have any other business?
Just the one thing I just put in the chat, just to let you all know if anybody is in that list of towns that I put in the chat, there's a new funding option for EVs that are heavier than like pickups. So you're sort of mid-weight vehicles. And this is for commercial, like if you own a business that uses a vehicle, there's EV funding. It's really like, it's not, you know, a couple thousand, it's 25,000 up to 100,000 for class 6 vehicles. So it's really extensive funding and it's available in all those towns I put in the chat. And I also put the link to the program.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you. Is this, I'm thinking, there was a big news a month or a couple of months ago. Is this related?
This is when they had that press release in Newark. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's related. That is that
Yeah, yeah,
program.
yeah.
The way that they made it sound in that press release, I really thought it was going to just be Newark and Camden that were eligible. But
Mhm.
you can see that the list of towns is really big. You know,
Mhm.
it's sort of that whole metropolitan area for
Mhm,
both of
mhm,
those
mhm.
areas.
And the way how they finance is that they pay portion of it or of the cost or everything?
It's a voucher program. So
Voucher.
you pay the NJEDA for the portion that's not covered by the vehicle and they buy the vehicle for you.
Oh, okay, cool. I want to copy this thing and I'll put it into my deck. And I'll format it in a better way. Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. How shall I call it? What is EDA?
It's the Economic Development Authority. So we're used to talking about the BPU. This is just another state agency, like the DEP. There's sort of
Agency?
three. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So that, yeah, you got it. So it's just like the
Okay.
BPU and the DEP, but it's like another one.
Ah, I didn't know about that one. Hey, I learn every day
They
something
mostly
new.
do housing. This is all funded through Reggie. To my knowledge, although I'm not an expert, I think that this is their first vehicle program.
Yep. EDA is short for Economic Development Authority.
Oh, is it authority and not agency? Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So they do a bunch of programs. They also do a lot of small business loan guarantee type programs and whatnot. So their goal is to promote economic activity in New Jersey.
They have a webinar on that site that explains it. And I have to tell you, there was a lot of information in the webinar that I would not have taken from the written, you know, text that's there. So if you're really interested, I recommend watching the webinar.
It is organized by the authority. The webinar, it was? Or
Yes,
it will
yeah,
be?
it was. The person who is coordinating that effort gave the webinar.
Okay, so I suppose there is a recording somewhere.
Yeah, it's on that that page that you see that link up there that has all
Yeah.
the information,
Okay,
including the webinar link.
There you go. And big apply here button.
And you can see the recording is over here. They've got one for vendors and one for buyers. So obviously we're the buyers. And then if you go down to the bottom, it's, you know, you could tell that they're not used to doing transportation stuff because it's organized a little bit strange. Keep going down. Keep going. You'll see the potential vendor list. You can add new vendors if you want to. They just have to, these are the vendors that have already been cleared through their approval process. And there's a lot of those little transit buses for like last mile transit, a lot of like sort of class 6 trucks and those ones with the sort of wooden cage on the back of it. I was actually just looking through them earlier today.
I don't see Lion Electric.
It's there. I saw it. It's oh, there, it's down 2 from where your cursor is now. Excuse me. You see it down 2 from where you
Lightning.
one more.
Oh, Lion Electric. Okay, cool. And Proterra. Do we have Proterra here? I don't see Proterra. No.
But yeah, so they probably will be more added as people find out about it.
Proterra is a big one from California. And Lion Electric, I think, is based in Canada. They make electric buses, school buses.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, there's a lot of school buses on here.
probably more because they say truck center. So cool. This is beautiful. Nice resource. Email addresses, phone number. They will have lots of spams now. Okay. If this is publicly released like me, right? My email address. This is one big disaster. Cool. Anything else?
Oh, it's my birthday today.
Happy birthday, Alex. Of course, thanks for reminding me. And guess what? Tomorrow is my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Stan.
How come that we met like that and our birthdays are so close? I guess that our years of birth are different. I was born earlier, I suppose.
I will not mention.
Okay.
But don't judge a man by the length of his beard.
Yeah, I was about to make a comment about your beard. You've got interesting story, right? So you were doing something with the chalks, and then you were approached by a police officer, right? Because somebody reported you are stealing stones or something.
Yeah, they thought somebody called the police because they thought I was stealing landscape stones. But I had a bucket full of chalk, and well, I had all my chalk stuff in the bucket, so I took it out, and then I had to weigh down the bucket because it was keeping my sign in place. So I just grabbed a few landscaping stones, threw them in a bucket, right? And so I guess somebody saw this guy in a long beard and a hoodie throwing stones in a bucket, you know, and they're like,
in your own hometown, right?
Yeah. It's like, man,
you've got a neighbors, you know. Very proactive. Okay.
Hey guys, well, good meeting. Thanks, Dan.
Nice shirt, I see.
Yes, I wore this for you guys.
Cool. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Thank you for everything you do for electric vehicles. Please stay safe. And I'll see you next month. By the way, I don't have speaker. So if you have someone to talk, let me know, okay? Have a good one.